Hey guys, Justin Jaynes here with the 10-7, and I want to ask you, was Shara Bullet Magomedov exposed last night against MVP, and what's next for Bullet? Guys, I'm talking about Shara Bullet, hailing from Dagestan. Currently, he's 15-1. He's 30 years old. He's 6'2". He's a middleweight in the UFC, and he's mostly known because he is a blind fighter that can only fight in the Middle East, guys. Since making his debut in 2023, he's compiled together a record of 4 wins and 1 loss in the UFC. But I really think that the UFC was kind of tailoring him a route. All right. And the reason I say that is I look at his opponents, and excuse me, guys, I'm about to butcher his names, but none of his opponents have had winning records. His first opponent, Bruno Silva, 4-6. Then you look at Antonio Trocoli, 0-2. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his next 2 opponents' names, but his first opponent 7-7, next opponent 3-3, MVP coming into this bout 1-1. You know, I feel like the UFC narrative played a huge factor for these matchups. Besides the fact that I don't know anything about his opponents besides Bruno Silva, I think they like the story of the blind fighter coming in and persevering. And it's an incredible story. And there's so many people out there battling with disabilities that can relate. So I understand why the UFC had done this. Now, matching him up against Michael Venom Page, an incredible kickboxer coming over from Bellator with a record of 1-1 going into this competition in the UFC. I think this was wrapped up for the Bullet, man. He was a minus 185 favorite coming into this fight on a 4-fight win streak. Michael Venom Page finding, some trials and tribulations coming in the UFC, starting off at 1-1. But the UFC knew that MVP wasn't going to try to wrestle him. They weren't going to try to grapple him. He wasn't going to try and put him up the fence. But what they didn't consider is MVP is an incredibly long, rangy striker. And in the past, that's what Bullet has struggled with. I really think matching him up against MVP in the UFC's eyes was, MVP kind of being a gatekeeper now for exciting fights. They want to see what this kid was made of. Give him the test, and, he was outstruck. So what do I think's next for Bullet? Personally, I think Bullet needs to go back to Dagestan. He needs to get with Khabib, get with Islam, and focus on his wrestling and grappling. Guys, the guy's an incredible kickboxer. And again, being blind, and my coach Roman Isbell is blind, and he talks about sparring being blind and how hard it is and how your depth perception is off. So again, it's just such an incredible story. But again, this is an equal playing field. It doesn't matter if you're blind. It doesn't matter if you have 1 arm or 3 toes. Like, you step in the cage and you're expected to perform. Tell me, guys, what do you think's next for Bullet? Who do you guys want to see him fight next? Leave them in the comments.